we make it very clear up front that that's how we operate. And if they're not on board with it, then they need to go find another management company. It's as simple as that. I tell them literally in our first meeting, like, this is who we are and this is why it matters.
And I always joke, like, you shouldn't be in this business if you don't have the hospitality gene, and you can tell the people that have it and the people that don't.
Back in the day, pre-COVID, I think the industry to a certain extent was less complex than it is now. I think the technology in some cases has helped, but I think it's also made it more complicated for managers because there's so many different things.
A lot of the problems really start to occur when you start scaling. I'm talking all this about brand standards and guests first, but if you start bringing on 100 properties a year, it's really hard to keep that up. And so I'm trying to build out systems using AI and the technology is there right now to be able to scale responsibly and keep the standards that I've put in place.
We'll start the show in just a minute, but first, a word from our premier brand sponsor.
Not all property management software is built with independent hosts in mind. If you're running your business solo, you already know the drill. You're keeping calendars aligned, juggling guest messages, managing bookings, and trying to carve out time to grow your rentals. Logify was designed to make that easier. It gives you powerful tools that stay simple to use. One clean dashboard where you can manage direct bookings, guest communication, payments, and calendar sync across Airbnb, Vrbo, and your other channels. No technical experience needed, and no complicated setup to slow you down. Logify also provides free, personalized onboarding valued at over $3,000. Their team walks you through everything, so you can get up and running quickly. Alex and Annie listeners get 20% off all yearly plans when you use the code AAA20 at checkout. Click the link in the description to get started today.
Welcome to Alex and Annie, the Real Women of Vacation Rentals. I'm Alex.
And I'm Annie.
And we are joined today by Brandon Hall, who is the CEO of Hallson Hospitality. Brandon, it's so good to see you today.
You as well. Thank you so much for having me.
We're excited to get to know you. We talked a little bit off camera. I had the opportunity to work with your team. I did branding photos in one of your beautiful properties a couple of months ago, and they were tremendous to work with. But we don't know a lot about your organization and a lot about you. So why don't you give us a little bit about your background and how Hallson came to be?
Yeah, absolutely. Got very into real estate investing back in 2007 and bought my first real estate deal in 2001 week before the market crashed in 2007. And then shortly after that, decided to start a wine company, kind of put off real estate for a while. Spent 15 years. I founded a wine company called OneHope Wine with 6 co-founders. And spent 15 years traveling the country, growing that brand. It took me all over. And Nashville was one of the first markets that were distributed in on the East Coast, and fell in love with Nashville. This is back in the infancy when there was like a handful of bars on Broadway. It was a very cool small city, but I always say that back when I started coming here, I got out of a couple tickets for having a California license plate. Now that definitely doesn't happen these days, but really loved it here and was coming back a lot for work, made a bunch of good friends, and just kind of saw the potential of this market. So while I was building that brand, I started again, 10 years later, started investing in real estate again. And this was kind of the infancy of short-term rentals. I was actually living in New York City at the time and going back and forth between New York and Nashville. And so I bought a home here that I would Airbnb when I was in New York, and I was Airbnb my apartment in New York when I was down here or traveling. Most of my time in the wine industry and what a lot of my expertise is in branding, marketing, and just customer experience. Mm-hmm. It's actually, now that I'm deep into both industries, there's a lot of overlap in the way that I think about it. In the wine industry, we had 10,000 competitors in the wine industry, and everyone is looking for the next best bottle, and it's highly dependent on the label and the story and the emotional connection that you have with that. So everything that we developed there was about that. How do we emotionally connect people to our brand? We have the core idea behind our brand is that we donated back to a nonprofit. So originally, every bottle gave back to a different nonprofit. And, today we give back to social human needs projects through our foundation. And so we created this really, cool brand, unique story that connected people to it. And so as I started investing in real estate, I used my, kind of passion for design to design really cool properties. And then while I was, managing the properties while traveling around, I just delivered really great guest experience, from freshly baked cookies to I pre-write handwritten thank you notes and have our cleaners put those out, and just really believed in that process. And so as I was able to grow my portfolio in Nashville, and as I got very busy with the wine business, I at two points handed my portfolio over to local property management companies. And I was co-host at the time, so I could watch how they were managing properties. And I'd be like on an airplane, no, don't do that. Don't say that. That's not what they meant. But very quickly, I saw my reviews just tank. And I just saw there wasn't the care of the property that I had, and there wasn't the care for the guests that I had. And so after 2 rounds of that, I decided, I had 3 properties at the time. I decided just to hire someone, a friend of mine locally, and kind of teach them what I know, because I just wasn't able to keep up with it with my schedule. This was right before COVID. As COVID started to happen, I was able to invest in more properties in Nashville, and I helped a lot of friends and family invest in Nashville as it was booming during COVID. And in each instance, I brought in one of our partner designers to design the property, and I plugged it into our little tiny management team that was behind the scenes. And over the span of about 1.5 years, we went from my 3 properties, about 25 properties on our portfolio. And I came to, at one point, I had my mom moved out from California to oversee the operations and the cleaners. I had a friend doing the guest communication. She had just had her 2nd kid. And at one point they both came to me. They're like, you need to do something with this, because this is getting out of control. We can't handle this anymore. So I kind of had a come to Jesus moment of what, kind of fork in the road of what do I want to do here? I know we had incredibly high performing properties. I knew we were onto something. And so I took this was conference season about 2.5 years ago, and I went to a lot of the major conferences in the industry, and just to kind of see, okay, what's this industry about? I know we're doing great in Nashville. Let me go to these conferences and see kind of what this whole industry is about. And basically my main takeaway from that conference I went to was that there was not a lot of talk about hospitality or guest experience. It was all about operations. It was all about the owners. How do you get more owners? How do you take care of the owners? How do you make the owners happy? And then cleaning, maintenance, and all that. And there was one talk about marketing, and there was maybe one talk about guest experience. But overall, it was not talked about at all. And I'm just in my mind, I'm like, what is going on here? And went to another conference, kind of the same thing. It was very just revenue management focused and operations. And I kind of while I was there, I was kind of looking at a lot of the other, property management companies that were there, looking at their websites, and it was all kind of the same thing. It was all just very much, here's our portfolio, book our home. We'll take care of your home. And then owners, like a big owners button, new owners click here. And so my takeaway from that, I came back and I just believe that there is a really big opportunity to build a brand in the space that was focused on guests first and hospitality, and doing whatever you can to make the guests happy and delivering our portfolio. That was the other thing I noticed at these conferences is that every management company had a huge diversity of portfolio, from beautiful mansions to small 1-bedroom apartments. There was not a lot of consistency. This has definitely changed over the past couple of years, which is awesome. But those are the 2 big takeaways I had. And so I decided to step away from my wine business and start Hallson Hospitality, and create a brand, put it out there, and start marketing it and building kind of a brand around it.
So here you are. So how many properties do you have now?
We have 80 properties right now.
80. Yeah, I was going to say, because I knew it was well over 50 when I looked at it, because there was some beautiful choices.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, you can tell too on your website. I mean, when you look at the properties, they do all, have a similar kind of, as far as quality, look and feel. I mean, very, clearly very curated in terms of the design and some of the fun elements and things that you have in them. But I'm curious in this process. I mean, you went from 23 now up to 80, and did you have opportunities to kind of go in a different direction just to manage other properties that you turned down, or like what did that process look like of just finding these 80 that really fit the brand?
Yeah, good, great question. We've done zero outbound like kind of fishing at this point for owners. Everything that we have has been referrals or word of mouth or referrals, or people just organically finding us and reaching out. And I do have very tough conversations with owners that come to us, especially in Nashville. Nashville's a very tough market right now. So I would say I would probably turn away 3 out of every 4 owners that I speak to. In many cases, the property needs significant redesign to be able to fit our standards. Mm-hmm. And the reason I have that conversation is I believe truly in my experience as an owner dealing with property management companies, there was really bad transparency and really bad trust issues, and it was promising the world and under delivering. And so when I started this, I believe very strongly on being very transparent and very honest up front of what a property can actually do, because the worst thing in the world is managing a property for an owner that can't make their mortgage payment because it's not performing. So I literally tell people, we will not take on your property if at this like very conservative projection, you can't make your cover your bills. We just won't do it. I don't care if it's a $10 million home. Like if you can't pay your bills, it's just going to make our life miserable because you're going to be
that's a really good point.
Questions of,
I don't think anybody's ever put it quite like that. I mean, I think there's a lot of conversation about level setting expectations with owners, but I don't think anybody's ever said like, I won't take an owner because they're not going to be able to make, because I think that's a really big distinction that isn't made. We talk to people all the time that get frustrated with the realtors in their market, that the realtors will be like, absolutely not a problem. Yeah. And then they come walking through the door and they end up taking the owner on, hoping that they're going to be able to change the conversation and make them understand where they're really, really at. But like you said, it just sets everybody up for a bad situation from the beginning. So I definitely think the way you put that was spot on, and more people need to be able to have the confidence to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's interesting too, the conference that you mentioned, I kind of have a feeling in my mind which one it was a couple of years ago that you said there was no talks about hospitality. And I remember, if it was the one I'm thinking of, Annie and I were at a dinner with Matt Landau and his friend who was outside of the industry. And we were asking him, we were like, what do you've never been to one of these? What do you think? He's like, I'm really confused because I thought that this is a vacation rental conference, and like no one's even talking about the most important thing, the hospitality. Like you said, everybody's just talking about like the nuts and bolts and the SOPs and how things are like mechanically done. And it's like, he's like, that's what I would have thought this would be, of more of thought leadership and like, how do we all become better and, elevate the industry? And that really was lacking from the conversation at that point. But, it's always interesting to hear people that are from outside of the industry, but have like the background like you do, and branding and marketing and other businesses come in and hear their perspective, because we've been going to these things for, I don't know, two decades now. So it's like nothing really shocks us. But.
So, you decided to go all in on the hospitality component, and you mentioned that it's gotten better. Since you've been in the industry. And I absolutely think that's true. I think I started out in hotels, and I always joke like, you shouldn't be in this business if you don't have the hospitality gene, and you can tell the people that have it and the people that don't. And I think that's we're starting to see a lot of people that got in kind of post-COVID because it was a area that they saw they could make a lot of money really, really quick. And they didn't really have that gene, and they didn't really have that sense of creating an experience and curating the properties and making people feel welcomed when they're staying in these homes. And so it's really great that you identified that. And so what do you think from your perspective, the industry at large can do to continue to elevate that as a focal point?
I've actually thought a lot about this because it comes very naturally to me. Like I care very, very deeply about people, and I care how their experience with, whether it's coming over to our house for dinner or renting one of our houses. Like, it's just, I'm a people pleaser. And so it comes very naturally to me. And it didn't make a lot of sense to me how like this people were missing the connection here. But I think why it hasn't been there is from my perspective, you guys have been in this way longer than I have, but pre-COVID, I think there wasn't a lot of expectations when renting a VRBO or short-term rental. It was, give me my door code, make sure there's some toilet paper and I'm good. I'll figure it out. And then post-COVID, a lot of the hotel sector came over. So obviously hotels were shut down. So there's a whole cohort of people that came over that were used to staying at hotels and had expectations. And so there's this, I think there's a lot of people that really love the operations side of this and done an incredible job with the operations side of it. I'm not good at the operations side of it at all. First thing I did was go and hire a very good operations person, but it's a very different, just like personality trait to be able to like think constantly of what the guest needs and wants versus like making sure the homes are clean and maintained. Like I can't do that. I would drive myself crazy trying to do that, but I can think of every little touch point in a house that's going to make a difference in the guest experience. So I think it's just like a natural trait that people have. But as far as like what the industry can do, I truly think it is just literally thinking of it as a guest first mentality. Like you have to put that guest first. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter kind of what they need. Until, like I tell my team, until they're rude and disrespectful, we have to do everything that we can to make sure that their needs and expectations are met. Because at the end of the day, guest happiness is all about, are their expectations being met or not? Yeah. And I think if you think of it from that perspective, starting with they're expecting to show up to a clean and maintained house. So that's like step one, right? They're expecting someone to pick up the phone when they call. That's step two. But every opportunity you have to exceed that expectation is a point in the win. So if they show up and it's a clean house and there's fresh baked cookies and a handwritten note, that's 2 points, right? Yeah. If they need some help and they call and we say, someone will be there in 15 minutes to fix the toilet seat for you. That's another point. So every time you're like exceeding their expectations, you're getting another point. And I think if you consistently build that into your operations, it just compounds over time.
And so where do you make the cookies? How do you run?
Let's talk about the important stuff.
I used to, early on, I would just bake them when I was doing it. And then when my mother moved out here, my mother started literally baking, like she had a bakery in her house. She would just bake
all day long, just
oh my god!
All day long. And I was like, this has got to stop.
Yeah.
Then we partnered with a local bakery, and we'd get cookies from them. And now we do a handful of different things. We have a variety of different options that we do based on the property and who's coming. We try to personalize it as much as possible now. So we're not doing the freshly baked cookies now, but if it's the first 3 stays for a new property, we do everything we can to get fresh baked cookies there, just to like get those first couple great reviews in the door.
Yeah, well, there's nothing like smelling fresh baked cookies when you walk into a house. That's definitely
a vacation rental. I had a client that I work with that they initially, the first year or so of owning the business, they put fresh flowers in every property upon arrival, which was also like, wow, you don't see that often. But they found it wasn't scalable for them, so that kind of went away. But if you're able to scale that, and it makes sense how having an outside vendor fulfill that for you. That makes a huge impact when somebody walks in the home. I mean, that's like such a nice treat, literally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. When I walked into your home, there was a basket on the kitchen counter and it had wine, and I didn't take any of it. I left it for whoever the guest was coming in. I assume that's who it was for, but it was very nicely placed and done. And like you walked in it and just saw it, and you immediately felt like, I could breathe, I could relax, I could unwind here. And so, I mean, I think that's a really nice touch. And some people kind of try, but they don't go the extra like little step of the handwritten note. And I think that's always something that you can do that really doesn't take a lot of time. Yeah, you might have to sit down every week and write 50 different notes, but that is so meaningful in today's technology world where people just send texts and we don't get mail. Like what you do get in the mail is generally a bill or junk. You're not getting handwritten notes. So to show up someplace with either fresh baked cookies or a handwritten note, I think that's a nice little touch that a lot of people aren't doing anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be back in just a minute, but first, a word from our premier brand sponsor. For many vacation rental company owners, there comes a time when you think about what's next. Maybe it's planning an exit, stepping back from daily operations, or finding the right partner to carry the business forward. Nocturne Luxury Villas is helping founders like you take that step with confidence. They partner with founders to build on the brand and relationships they've worked so hard to create over the years, while adding the resources necessary to grow stronger. Nocturne has completed 7 selectively chosen acquisitions in iconic destinations, and every single company kept its own identity, team, and homeowner relationships. In fact, they've never lost a homeowner after closing. That's incredible. They also bring powerful support from marketing and finance to technology and global distribution. With access to more than 500,000 high net worth and ultra high net worth travelers and partners like Virtuoso, American Express Select Homes and Retreats, and Marriott Homes and Villas, they expand the visibility and direct bookings well beyond what's possibly done alone. If you're considering your next chapter, go to nocturneluxuryvillas.com to see how they can help you protect your legacy while unlocking new opportunities. Now, I'm curious, on the homeowner side, how do you extend that mindset of what you do for guests as far as hospitality? How do you extend that to your relationships with owners?
We make it very clear up front that that's how we operate. And if they're not on board with it, then they need to go find another management company. Yeah. It's as simple as that. I tell them literally in our first meeting, like, this is who we are and this is why it matters. And ultimately, if you buy into our philosophy, like, our true belief is going to generate more success for your property, more revenue for your property. But if we don't have the ability to do whatever we can to to get 5-star reviews, then naturally over time, something's going to happen and it's going to, bad reviews are going to come in. And if you're not willing to do what we need to do, then, we're not going to take it.
It's not going to work.
And for a perfect example is we typically leave a bottle of wine and either cookies or popcorn or like things, depending on what it is for. And we charge that to the owner, but we tell them, like, that right there is like 3 points when they walk in the door. Right.
Yeah.
They will that piece of hair that was left on a sheet or pillow, like, they'll forget about that when they're greeted with a really nice thing. So we have to kind of like talk them through examples like that of why it matters. But if they, if they say no, they're not going to do that, or like, we've managed them for 3 or 4 months, like, I don't want to spend the money on the wine or cookies or this anymore, then we say that's fine, then we'll terminate the contract.
Yeah, because that's not part of your brand, so it's not optional. What about though on the homeowner, like, just the relationships with owners? Like, do you guys do anything special when owners come to town to stay in the properties, or like how do you keep maintaining those relationships that are vital to be able to keep these properties?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We treat them just like guests when they come to stay at the property. So we obviously know our owners a little bit better. So we'll go a little more above and beyond to make sure that, if they're a big whiskey drinker, we'll go get a nice bottle of whiskey. Kind of depends what they're here for. We have someone coming for Thanksgiving next week with their family, so our team's going to do something special for her. But yeah, and we treat them like clients. We send them gifts throughout the year. We send them nice Christmas gifts. Like, we send them handwritten, thank you notes, thanking them for trusting us. Little thing. We take the same approach, but if you have to rank them, the guest comes first, the owner comes second.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's a good way to look at it. I was curious. So we were talking before we got on air, and I mentioned you played college football. So to play college football, you played football your whole life. So team is probably just completely part of who you are at the core of you. Do you think that any of the things that you learned through playing football and obviously in college, because you were a Division I school, do you like use any of those learnings as you were putting together your team and how you manage your team?
Yes, 1000%.
Yeah.
I played football at Cal, UC Berkeley, which is obviously an incredible school. And I always tell people, like, I learned way more on the football field than I did in the classroom at that school.
I bet,
I think, some of the best teams that we had the best chemistry. And we had other teams that had incredible talent, but didn't have great chemistry. And I believe that's very, very true in business. And so as I'm hiring a team, and this goes back, we did this at my previous, or OneHope as well. is we're very, very, very cognizant of who we're bringing on the team based on how they're going to fit in with the team and how they fit into the culture of the team. And it's very important that they understand the guest first mentality as well. That's a huge part of it, is they have to be passionate about hospitality. They have to understand why the guest comes first. And, but yeah, and because that we've had, have a great team that really cares about this, because I think that's what it comes down to more than anything, is really caring about a home as if it's your own home, or a guest as if it's, dear friend of yours that you want to make sure is having a good time. So anyways, but yeah, to answer your question, I think chemistry and culture is probably what I learned the most from there, that I've carried through all my businesses since.
Yeah. I love that. I'm curious too about the technology that runs behind the scenes that enables you to be able to give these elevated touches. What does your tech stack look like?
Oh man, ever evolving. We use Guesty as our PMS, Breezeway, and then Conduit as our kind of communication hub, which was Host AI.
Oh, okay.
So
I've heard of Conduit before.
Yeah.
Conduit, as in regards to this, or in regards to kind of the guest first approach, what I was really looking for is a platform that an agent or someone on our team can go in and see the entire conversation with that guest, whether it was an email or text message or a phone call. It was just, even with Guesty, we had to use different phone systems, and it was very, we're messaging on Breezeway, messaging to Guesty, then had a phone system as well. And you had to kind of put the whole story together. You kind of had to go in between all of them. So Conduit was one that is a platform that kind of plugs into everything, and you get one clear understanding of what is going on with the guest. So that way, someone who hasn't been dealing with them can very quickly get up to speed.
Yeah.
And deliver the right answer or need.
Yeah. You kind of alluded to like ever evolving. So do you feel like there's other technology that everybody's talking about AI right now. Do you think that there's new technology that you need to adopt, or something that you're looking into for next year?
Yeah. I say it's ever evolving. So I'm like, can someone please just put all of this into one package for us? We get some mergers going on, so we don't have to all be separate. But I am very much looking at, we also use Monday.com as our, probably task management board. And that's, I think, one of the hard things with this business is just it's very complex, right? You're dealing with homes that are complex and have a variety of issues. You're dealing with guests that can be not complex to very complex. And you're dealing with homeowners that can also be, you either don't hear from them or they're texting you every day asking questions. And so trying to build like a centralized hub where all of the information can live, and I think is incredibly important. And we're going through that process right now with an AI company called Axe Automation that is basically kind of takes our entire tech stack and helps kind of make sense of all of it in one place, which would be Monday.com. And so, and they use a ton of AI to do that, to make sure all the dots connect and that everyone knows what's going on. Mm-hmm. So that's the biggest undertaking. And I'm doing that because like scaling from, we've scaled from 25 to 80 properties in 2 years. And there's a couple months we're onboarding 8 properties in 1 month. And then it's just mayhem, right? Mm-hmm. Just absolutely mayhem. As much process as we're trying to put together, like things are still slipping through the cracks. I'm just kind of obsessed right now with figuring that using AI and using the technologies out there to put the system in place to make sure things are not slipping through the cracks. So as we scale, I think it's not, many people know this in the industry, is like a lot of the problems really start to occur when you start scaling. I'm talking all this about brand standards and guests first, but if you start bringing on 100 properties a year, it's really hard to keep that up. And so I'm trying to build out systems using AI and the technology is there right now to be able to scale responsibly and keep the standards that I'm put in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll let you know how that goes.
I think a lot of companies are in a similar boat, that it's like you've got a lot of different bolt-on technologies that each of them serve a specific need. But at the end of the day, even if they're API connected, they're not all from one source of truth. And
Right.
Inherently that's going to lead to, disconnects and not having all the information that you need to have it, completely flow all together there. But, and really it's like, you came into the industry at a very interesting time that back in the day, I mean, pre-COVID, I think the industry to a certain extent was less complex than it is now. And I think the technology in some cases has helped, but I think it's also made it more complicated for managers, because there's so many different things. And it's like you go to the trade shows and it's like, God, I mean, I feel like I need everything here, but like, how do I narrow down what's a nice to have versus, looking at it from a couple different lenses? What's going to make more revenue? What's going to simplify things to improve the work, environment for my team, and what's going to allow me to be able to continue scaling? Like you mentioned, I mean, onboarding is, that's also a topic that I don't feel like is talked about enough at conferences, because some companies have a playbook, some don't, and with properties, big homes in particular, onboarding it's a long process, and there's a lot of different departments. I mean, it has to touch every part of the company essentially.
Right.
Agrees. But yeah, it's complicated for sure. And I'm hoping that the industry, we kind of start going towards more of a consolidated effort, because it's just a lot, and there's a lot of decisions that have to be made as an operator.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you've obviously done something right, because you won Property Manager of the Year. 2 years ago? Was it 2 years ago?
Last year.
Last year. So when we're in Phoenix.
Yes.
Yeah. So congratulations for that. That's a really big honor. I know a lot of people just work tirelessly to get to that point. So what do you think that meant for you and your team, kind of to just, one, be called out in front of your peers? But I mean, do you think that was justification of everything and the blood, sweat, and tears that you've put into it at this point?
Yeah, I think it was for me personally, it was validation of my gut that I decided to step away from my other company that I started with my 5 best friends. It was my baby for 15 years, and like, give this crazy idea a shot. So I think for me, it was validation of like, okay, I am onto something here, and it is working. I think for my team in general, it was, everyone's come from this world. They'd all have worked at other management companies before, and they were attracted to Hallson because of the story I'm telling you and the vision I have for it. So I think it was also the same thing, validation for them that they made the right choice and that we're onto something.
Yeah, I'm sure they're super proud of that.
Yeah, and
it's nice to have your team. It's nice to have your team rewarded equally, for the hard work that they put in. So that's nice.
And it was actually awesome, because I was during the conference, I was in the hospital here in Nashville with having our second child. So he was literally born during the conference. And so my Jake Ahar, who's our operations director, who came in and we had like 30 homes, and just has been he's just worked so hard to like get all the homes onboarded. He's a rock star, and he went out there and accepted it. So more than anything, it was like really cool to have him go out there, and he's been in the industry forever, and kind of go up on stage and accept it. So that was really a cool moment.
That's really cool. How many people do you have on your team?
We have between local and VAs, we have 14 right now.
Okay, gotcha.
That's a pretty lean team for 80 properties, but
yeah.
But but obviously, I think you got the right technology in place to be able to help with some of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we're hiring a couple more. We probably use 2 more right now. So we're looking. It's also a very competitive market here, so it's hard to find the right people with the right fit and culture fit and all that. But we're always looking for sure.
Yeah, that's great. Well, what are your goals for 2026, Brandon? What are you excited about, or kind of where do you see the company going in the future?
Our goal, I've also thought a lot about this, of where we want to take this thing now that we're here. The first my first year was very much, what I call like the branding year, like getting the brand in place, the story, the message of what we're trying to do. And this last year was very much like the team building year, getting the foundation, the team in place and the foundation to actually scale. And so next year for us is definitely the scaling year. Primarily, I've thought everywhere of, do we do this just in Nashville or do we go outside of Nashville? And I'm still kind of working through that. But I think in general, it's how do we take what we built here and scale it in a very responsible way and go from there. So I don't know what that number is. We've grown at about 25 properties per year the past 2 years. And we're in the process of hiring a business development position that will kind of hopefully improve that pace. And that would be what I would say is the biggest goal and focus for next year.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
That's exciting.
Very exciting. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for coming on today. It was great to meet you. And I know Annie just raved about the place that she had for the photo shoot. So it's cool to actually meet who's behind, this places that we stay at or that we go to. That's kind of a nice little benefit. But if anybody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
I'm on Instagram, Brandon Hall 11, and always welcome to email me. It's brandon@hallson.co.
Okay, great. We'll put that in the show notes. And if anybody wants to get in touch with Annie and I, you can go to alexandanniepodcast.com. And until next time, thanks for tuning in, everybody.